Alrighty, that's always my cue to go ahead and start. Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. We are excited to be hosting our Tempo Talk session again with you guys. It's been a couple months since we last had a session, so really excited to be bringing these back for these fun conversations. Today, our topic is life hacks for better work-life integration, and we have a great panel and discussion lined up for you guys. Just a few quick housekeeping and just kind of background information if this is your first Tempo Talk session, or just as a reminder, since it has been a little bit. Our Tempo Talks are our monthly webinar series. This is Tempo's completely virtual programming offer, and they are going to be held throughout the entire upcoming Tempo fiscal year on the second Fridays throughout the year in the months listed on your screen there. So you can go ahead and save those dates for the entire year, the second Fridays from noon to 1, and they will always be virtual on Zoom. We're really excited that these programs always feature our Tempo members and our Tempo member experts on a variety of different topics and different conversations. So stay tuned to learn more about what our lineup is for the rest of the year, but always really excited to showcase the talents and the treasures that are right here in our membership. Attendees are all going to be muted and off camera for this session, but we do encourage you to still interact with our panelists and our moderator. You can pop any questions you might have in the chat box or in the Q&A function box, and we will carve out some time at the end to ask our panelists those questions. So please continue to interact with us that way. I will now introduce Catherine Murray. Catherine sits on our programming committee and has taken the lead for this session and will be serving today as our moderator. Catherine is marketing director with Ham's Company, and she is also a proud Tempo member. So she will go ahead and introduce our panelists and we will dive into the conversation. Catherine.
All right, well, thank you, Kelsey. As Kelsey said, we are excited to resume Tempo Talks with a discussion on life hacks that can help us optimize one of our most precious resources, which is, of course, time. So we have 3 wonderful Tempo members serving as our panelists today, each of whom represents a different stage of life. So we have Victoria Haas, who is the founder and principal of Affinity Accounting. Victoria has 3 young children, ages 3, 5, and 7. We also have with us today Jody Lowe, who is the president and managing director of the financial communications firm Lowe Group. Jody has 3 older children, one of whom is in high school, and the other 2, which are adult children that no longer live at home. And then we also have Lori Richards, who is the CEO of Miller Communications. Lori has 2 daughters who are in 3rd and 6th grade. So kind of different stages of life here that we have represented through our panelists today, which is, I think, helpful to see. So we've divided today's discussion into 3 areas: life hacks for the home, personal, and professional work life. So, you know, it's worth noting that each panelist's tips reflect, again, their current stage in life, but also their own personal and professional priorities. As Kelsey mentioned, that at the end of this session, we have time for questions, but we'd also love for everybody to chime in with some of your own tips and tricks or life hacks, whether it's an app or other recommendation that you might want to share with the group here today. So please feel free to use the chat function to share your own tips and tricks and ask questions and have a good discussion today. So we're going to start with life hacks for the home, and we'll have Victoria Haas start this discussion. So Victoria, I will turn it over to you to just talk through some of your tried, true, and tested life hacks for the home.
Thanks, Catherine. You know, this topic is a personal favorite of mine. I absolutely love being able to share ideas back and forth like this about how to make life more manageable, what's worked well for others. But yeah, happy to share a couple of ideas that have kind of worked well for us and our family, just to kind of frame it out. So our main home priority right now is to just like help the kids first learn basic life skills that we all eventually need, and to know, what's involved in that. They need to learn to take care of themselves and eventually, stand on their own and be self-sufficient. So for me, in this phase of life, everything extra that the kids can do themselves and help around the house with is really kind of a life hack. So, also, if they, eventually, choose to outsource any of these things later, they have a foundation for where that comes from, and, have an appreciation for it. So we spend a few hours on Sunday prepping for the week, especially when it comes to meals. And what we do is we source our beef and our fish. So we always kind of have a stock of food to pull from in the chest freezer. And we'll cook a bit and prep the ingredients for most of the week's recipes. So we'll make the marinades, chop certain vegetables, slice the meat if that takes time. Prep the ingredients that get thrown into the, Instapot or marinator or slow cooker throughout the week. And what we do is we use an instant marinator, which is also a food saver. So it costs about like $20 to $30, and it's this glass or like a hard plastic Tupperware for like marinating things, and something that takes overnight to marinate, you can marinate in 20 minutes. Another thing that we learned from all this food prep is that if you throw a dry paper towel into a Ziploc or, a Tupperware of your vegetables, herbs, fruit, that will actually extend the life of that item because it absorbs the extra moisture that gets put off. And then another thing that we do on Sundays is that we have the kids prep to go bags for their activities for the week. So like we have a soccer bag, a swim bag, like hockey, whatever activity it is. So you or whoever else might be taking them to the activity, maybe that's a spouse or a caretaker, can just grab it and go, and you don't have to, waste time getting stuff together right before you have to leave. And then just the last home hack that I have is that just the ages that our kids are right now, we started from when they were 1 to like now our oldest is almost 8. And so being the ages that they are, we just kind of actually skip the PJs altogether, and we just have them change and they go to sleep in the clothes that they plan to wear the next day, because time is so precious in the morning that it's just one less thing that we have to worry about.
The things I think you mentioned when we were talking about some of your very organized food prep habits was that you use AnyList, and maybe you'll talk about that at some point, but
Yeah.
you kind of use that if you see, okay, we're out of XYZ, we're out of nutmeg, or we're out of whatever, you and your husband share AnyList to just have things on the list that you might discover you need. Can you just briefly talk about that app and how you use it?
Sure. Yeah. So AnyList is a free app. And so you can, it integrates with Alexa, and I have like a Google Echo. So when I'm cooking and we run out of something, I'll just say, Alexa, add nutmeg or whatever it is, and then it's on the list. So then this list is shared with my husband. And so the list is always kind of updated. And if he wants to stop on his way home from work or something, I don't have to like get him something or coordinate anything. It's just there available. So that's kind of helped us to, I guess, work together on that and not have everything be only on my plate.
So it sounds like the need for nutmeg is really important around here.
Right? Yeah.
All right. Well, Lori, how about we hear from you next as far as some of your favorite life hacks for around the home?
Absolutely. If nutmeg is a code word, yes, I feel that too. Right. Well, thank you, Catherine. As you mentioned, I've got kids that are maybe kind of the next stage in terms of age and grade from Victoria's. So my daughters are almost 12 and almost 9. But just like Victoria, creating a sense of independence for them is very important, not only for us to help, prompt them to be good grown-ups and good independent young adults, but it also makes our lives easier. So very similar to Victoria, we do a fair amount of prep on Sundays. I feel very strongly, as much as I love to travel and those types of things, if I don't have a good amount of prep time between laundry, groceries, all of those things on Sundays, my week tends to be a little chaotic the following week. So weeks tend to be triage, but the real planning kind of happens on the weekends in our house. So on Sundays, one of the elements of our food planning is around school lunches as well. We try to require our kids to do hot lunch at least 1 or 2 days a week, but candidly, it's not all that healthy and it doesn't look all that appetizing. So we compromised on a solution, which is kind of about a bin system. We had to sort of let go of the notion that all lunches had to contain a sandwich, which was something that, was just the way I grew up. But I think part of hacks too are about letting go of those things and just, when you truly look at the ingredients and what's in food, for us, for our kids, it's about having protein and then having some fruits and some veggies at lunch. So we tend to stack 3 bins with those labels on Sundays. And then the girls make their own lunches during the week. If they don't want the school lunch option, you have to take 1 item from each bin and then they can choose their own snack. So it's sort of empowering them. They get to make some choices, but making my life a little bit easier as well. On the adult food side, we do outsource some of our food prep. So I do a meal kit service. We use the kit Gobble, like the turkey. And one of the reasons why we've chosen that one, there's great global cuisine. It's super tasty. And there's also a lean and clean menu. So it's really nice that you don't have to worry about, like, do I have the nutmeg or do I have the whatever? Because it all comes in the kit. All of the packaging that it comes in is recyclable, which we like too. So that's been a favorite of ours. I do also outsource then any other like grocery shopping. So stuff for the lunches, we use Meijer home delivery. That's our favorite right now. They actually, because of the nature of those stores too, if I need light bulbs or I need Kleenex or I need laundry detergent and those types of like general merchandise home items, I can also get through one order. So we kind of supplement the meal kit and then the order. And then I'd say my last hack just in general is just being okay with outsourcing. To your point, Victoria, I think we struggled for a while with the idea of like, oh, I don't know how I feel about having a cleaning person because I didn't grow up having a cleaning person and I want to teach my kids certain values. But you also realize that you're sort of like at the true crossroads of the time versus money equation when you have young kids, because just being a parent is so demanding of your time. So we found that actually it was most important to outsource during that phase of life. So, I mean, from snow removal in the wintertime to cleaning to actually a tip that I got from Jody years ago was find a good neighborhood babysitter to help drive your kids. My kids have practice at like 4 o'clock on a Thursday, and that's just not always practical. So being okay with outsourcing some of those things and recognizing that it may just be for a season of life. Now that my kids are actually a little older, I can drive them to more of those 4 o'clock practices. And I like to, because in the preteen years, they talk to you more in the car. So I've taken that back on my own plate. So it's being open to the idea of outsourcing and knowing that it's not always permanent, right? There may be a time when I take it back on.
Thank you, Lori. That's great advice. And Jody, how about you? It sounds like you've shared some of your hacks with Lori in the past as well.
Well, I'm really honored to be here and to be with you 3 women who I've relied on and called on and asked favors of and have been mentored by. I work closely with all of you, and it's really an honor to be here. I think whether it's kids or whether it's parents that are aging, there are things that all of us need to do outside of work. But one of the things that I've always argued is that there's balance and imbalance. And I'm going to repeat that. You can find balance through imbalance. It's not like we're ever going to have the perfectly balanced life, but to do the things that you really want to do that are your priorities. Maybe you need to be with your aging mother and have to be at a doctor's appointment. You've got to leave. You figure out ways to give back at other times of the day. So for example, we have had kids who've been very engaged in hockey and field hockey and baseball, and as they get older, they travel to tournaments in other cities. And often what we'll do is we'll travel in the night before, and we'll leave work on a Thursday afternoon and drive until 10 or 11 at night so that we can work from away the next day. We don't lose a day of work, and we may jump out for a game at 4 in the afternoon or at noon, but we're working from where we're at and burning the candle at other times of the day to be able to do that. So again, part of it is just sort of realizing that it's, you may have to give up some time to be able to do that, but you can show up. Also, if there's a game at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you may not be able to make it for the whole game, but those of you who've sat through youth baseball know those games go on forever. And if you can show up for at least half of it, that's good enough. And don't feel like you have to be there for every second. And make a chance, make an opportunity to be there, but find some balance in it, because you do have a job and people understand, and they're not going to, your kids aren't going to give you a hard time for not being there for every single minute. The other thing I wanted to mention is sort of empowering your kids. Again, our kids played hockey, and one of our rules was that you had to carry your own hockey bag from the very earliest moment. So our kids were carrying hockey bags when they were kindergartners and first graders, and they were also packing their bags. And we taught them how to pack their bags so that you did accounting to make sure you had everything in your bag on your own. And trust me, when they forget a piece of equipment and they can't skate, they'll be really upset. They won't forget it again. So again, part of it is just sort of letting them from an early age do their own thing. And I think the same thing applies to social media and to monitoring online classwork, right? I think the sense of, I don't need to be the helicopter mom. In fact, if my kids are responsible for their own classwork and we talk about it, they're going to do what they need to do. My telling them to do it doesn't help them to do it. They need to learn it themselves. And, I no more wanted my mother, coming to the Pizza Hut and hanging out with my friends and watching me interact with my friends when I was a kid than they want me monitoring their social media and being there all the time. And I know it's a dangerous world, but if you feel like you have to be there all the time, that's a big time suck. And again, teaching the empowering your kids to do what's right from the beginning, but not feeling like you have to micromanage it, like I said. And then to Lori's point too, we used to pay high school kids $20 to do trips in the summer, right? They're off of school too. Many of the kids have driver's license, and they can come and pick up your kids, take them over to a hockey practice or other places, and sit there and hang out with them. And it's good money for them, and they like doing it. So that was for us a time saver for sure.
Very good. Thank you, Jody. And there's some excellent recommendations and comments in the chat as well from podcasts, The Good Inside podcast, some other endorsements for Any List, the Minimal Mom podcast or YouTube. Brooke had recommended The Real Good Life as another meal service. So take a look at some of the recommendations in this chat as it relates to the topic of home hacks. So now we're going to shift into personal hacks. And when we talked about personal, you really almost do need to carve that out separately. And the idea that, we all need to take time for ourselves as well. The idea of putting on your own oxygen mask first, right? So maybe we're not all good at that, but we are trying. And the panelists here today are going to talk through some of their own life hacks or recommendations as a result, as it relates to their own personal health and well-being. So Lori, let's start with you with some hacks that you have to share with the group today.
Sure, thank you. And I do have a couple in this area as well. My first is about just sort of personal planning and like planning your outfits, your clothes for the week. my team knows here that I take dress for your day very seriously. But part of that for me is candidly if I have a big client pitch or I have a big board meeting and I want to bring my full confident self, like that sometimes means, dressing up or having wearing something that I feel really confident in. And sometimes that means if I'm just in the office and on Zoom calls, being a little more casual with sneakers and a blazer. But every Sunday, again, part of the planning process, when the laundry's done, I actually look at my calendar, I look at the weather, and I plan out all of my outfits for the entire week. So I have my 5-day hangers, including, jewelry, shoes, foundational garments, that type of thing. So when you're up in the mornings at my house are a little chaotic because we've got kids and breakfast and school and all of that. You're not trying things on and throwing them on the bed and this doesn't fit. And you've got reliable outfits that you love and it's all sort of pre-planned. So that has been a huge time saver for me. When my kids let me do it for them, I used to, pre-plan their stuff too, but that ship has sailed, which is fine. The next I would say is routine. So for example, I never leave a hair appointment without scheduling another hair appointment. I never leave a nails appointment without scheduling another, because for a period of time, I was like, oh no, I'll just go online and schedule it. But then it was like 2 weeks too late and I couldn't get in for another 3 weeks. And by that point, everyone's just sort of frustrated and you feel like you're not taking care of yourself. So getting in that regular scheduling cadence, I think has been really great. Another part of the routine for me is buying multiples of the products that I love, right? Even a hair straightener, that type of thing, and just having duplicates in my home bathroom and a travel bag. So you're never without the product that you need or love because you accidentally forgot it in the wrong place when you need it. Or if people get ready at the gym, I used to go to a gym where I would get ready there, just have 2 of everything, one at home, one in the gym bag, so you're not forgetting it. And then lastly, invest in the good dry shampoo. I have used many different kinds, but I've been reluctant to do the expensive one, and just invest in the good dry shampoo. It is definitely worth it.
Those lines, I've also, for the last 10 years, invested in a really good hair dryer, because if you dry your hair a lot, you just don't have time to waste on a bad hair dryer. So that's good tip, Lori. All right. What about you, Jody? Any personal life hacks that you would like to share with the group?
Yeah, I am a huge believer that exercise is probably one of my biggest contributors to my long run success, because I know a lot of people meditate, but for me, regular exercise is like a huge contributor to my own mental health. And a number of years ago, there was a woman I work with who said, you just got to get it in the morning. If you don't do it in the morning, it's too easy to set off. So I am a morning exercisers, and my Tempo mentor circle, I know a number of you are here today listening, have heard me talk about this before, but I get up early and I do a little bit of work every morning, but I always exercise, and it's not always a big full workout. It might just be a half-hour yoga session. I subscribe to an app called glow.com, and I might do a half-hour yoga class. I might just get on the treadmill and do some sit-ups for half an hour. So it's not as if I do a full hour workout in the morning, but I do something every day first thing, and it really invigorates and it has been, I would say it's one of my number one success tips. So it means that you have to go to bed on time. And it means, maybe you plan the day you wash your hair around when you go for the outside run, because you can't, you're definitely going to have to shower then. But it's non-negotiable for me. I also don't do laundry throughout the week. I do laundry on the weekend, and I do, 7 or 8 loads, and then I fold it all in one binge washing session. So then I can, get caught up on whatever Netflix show I want to, and I do it at the same time that I fold laundry, and kind of combine those two things together to kind of reward myself for this drudgery. In fact, I, don't let anybody else do laundry, because I like to do the folding and watch Netflix at the same time. I've come to really look forward to that hour or two time by myself. And then the other thing I'm just going to say too is that for me, reading and learning is has been really helpful for my life in general, but I love to read, and I always make time to learn, whether I'm reading a book or an article or whatever. I read on a Kindle, so I always have my Kindle with me, and it's always a good time to pull it out when you're waiting in line between games at a tournament or otherwise. But I think reading is really critical and it's important to me, and I think it's really been beneficial for me as a professional, just the things that you learn from reading. So it's, you need to save and make time for that, but it pays off. And I really try very hard to make sure I have time, and I do a little bit of reading for myself every day.
Thank you, Jody. And I believe the term is temptation bundling for looping in things that you don't love doing, such as laundry or folding laundry, with something you enjoy doing. So grouping those things together so it's a little more enjoyable. All right, Victoria, what about you? What do you have to share on the personal hacks side?
Sure. Yeah, so for us, I feel like one of the big overarching things that's, a priority and a presence in our lives is really managing our schedules. So like this is personal plus managing the kids' schedules plus work, and then coordination with the spouse and school calendars, birthdays, all of that stuff. So I use Google Calendar, which is not a new concept, right? So, but I think it might be worth just to kind of talk about like how there's many different ways that you can use Google Calendar. And so I can just kind of share how I use it as a tool. So let me see if I can share my screen here. So this is I'm going to share my personal calendar. So what I have is, this is a like sort of like a one overall view of many different calendars that I either subscribe to because it's managed by someone else. So like my husband, he will manage his own calendar, and that's in one color. And then the kids have their own calendar, and that's in one color. And mine is, the pink. And then we've got school calendars that we subscribe to. So a lot of times, like, schools will just say, here's the link to the Google Calendar. You can see what all of the events are that are coming up. So what I can do is, this is like a week view, but you could do a day view if you want to see the calendars side by side. But I like to have sort of more of an overview of what my week is going to look like. So I can toggle these on and off. So like, if this is too overwhelming, I don't care what the, kids are doing today or something, I can kind of customize this a little bit and pare it down. And also each one of these calendars, like I had mentioned, you can change the share settings. But you can also change the notification settings too. So like I have a separate birthday calendar where I put, dates on there, and it'll give me a notification maybe 10 days before somebody's birthday. And then it'll also give me a notification on their birthday. So it's just sort of like a little helper for me to, like, I have a pop-up on my phone that gives me a notification. And so, okay, so that's kind of how I manage the, all of the things that are going on in your life. And then just kind of switching gears. So on the financial side, another personal hack that we have is that we have separate credit cards for recurring auto pay transactions, apart from our normal spending credit cards that are like one-off, everyday type of purchases, like maybe retail or meals or whatever. So what that does is, we found that, sometimes there's like fraud activity or whatever, and you have to like replace your card. And so I had to eventually replace the, auto bill or whatever for, the utilities and whatnot. And so separating that out allowed me to not have to, it's just like cut down on the time to reset up everything, right? So all the auto paid stuff just stays. And then if we have a new credit card, then it's just like, okay, you just enter the new credit card if you have a one-off type of thing to pay for. So yeah, so those are my two main personal ones.
I have a question for you, Vic. Do you have a favorite credit card then, Victoria, for like a mileage perk or something like that?
So these days we're doing the Southwest for the companion pass. But we had been using Chase Freedom, and I just, they run these sales for the rewards, and so you can get more mileage for the amount that converts.
We do something similar, but we have an Amazon card and a Chase. So yeah.
Yeah.
And Steph Aarons said that she loved your calendar tutorial, Victoria, and they use Cozy Calendar. So if there's any other recommendations for time management or family calendar planning, feel free to share those in the chat as well. Excellent. On the topic of birthdays, one thing that we've used is Moonpig. It's a UK company, but we always struggle with remembering birthdays. I'm one of 7 kids. My husband's one of 5. We have so many nieces and nephews and cousins. And while I felt kind of awkward at first about not sending a handwritten card, it's a lot better to send a card at all than none. So we use Moonpig to just load in the birthdays, and then you can have, a card sent, and you can go online, and it has the address saved in there. So you can, if you want to send cards and make it a little less of a hassle, we've found that to be helpful. So birthdays are always a challenge. All right, well, shifting gears a little bit. There was another good comment on the chat about, I believe it was we already saw the glow.com. I wanted to write down from Jody, which was the another one of the apps you recommended. All right, well, shifting gears then for our kind of final area of hacks. And again, we'll have questions at the end, but also love to see more in the chats from all of our audience members. Work hacks, professional work-related hacks to optimize time and efficiency in your work and professional life. So Jody, let's go ahead and start with you for this last section of our presentation.
Great, thanks. And Moonpig, what a great name, Catherine. I love that. What a great name for an app. Well, I wanted to just sort of talk about from, at a high level, professional things that have been sort of important to me in terms of being productive. I really am a goal setter and a planner. And those who work with me know that I actually believe in New Year's resolutions. I actually go through the process every year. I have a folder that I've kept year over year of kind of thinking through what my goals for the year are. And I make a little note card each year. And at the end of the year, I actually go through and I evaluate how I've done on my goals. And I give myself a grade point average, right? And I think over time, I've averaged like B plus. I never get straight A's, right? There's always 1 or 2 that I fail, but at least I set it up. And if I haven't accomplished something, I'll carry it over to the next year. But I have a bigger plan, but on a weekly basis, I try to spend time thinking about each week and identifying the priorities. And I'll spend some time generally on a Sunday kind of planning for the week ahead. What are the things that I need to get done? I create a list and I use, I'm still a little bit old school, so I write my list down and I plan for the week and I keep looking back at that list. But then each day I get up, I spend a little time before I exercise in the morning and I try to identify a goal. And if you can really get one big goal a day done before noon, like the biggest thing that you really need to get done, force myself to work on that first thing. If I get that one thing done, if I get 5 things done a week, and if I get 20 things done in a month, I'm going to get a lot done, right? So I want to try to make sure that no day goes by without my accomplishing at least one thing on my weekly list that I wanted to get accomplished. And truth be told, once you get that big thing done, the rest of the day is great. You're kind of ticking off other things. You get multiple things done. But I want to make sure before I leave at the end of the day, I've gotten at least one thing done. And it's sort of a goal setting exercise that I do, and kind of tiering of goals, and then making sure each day that you get that one thing done. So again, I think I'll pass it back to you, but I think it's all sort of a little bit about planning for the week ahead, planning each day, but also sort of connecting all those plans to the bigger plan of things that you want to get done in the year.
Jody. Victoria, what about you?
So generally, I try to think about how my time is being spent and what tasks are taking a lot of my time, and see if there are any ways to sort of like automate or help that out. And, especially the repetitive ones, because, that can really add up over time. So for example, like if you want to cut down on the amount of time it takes, to go back and forth to schedule a meeting, and you don't want to, necessarily rely on an assistant, you can use something like Calendly to schedule meetings. So I use Calendly so Calendly allows you to set your available hours within a time frame. So like, if you only work a certain, or you only want to be available for meetings between a certain period of time. You can also set a buffer of time before and after meetings just by default, just so, in case it goes over or whatever, you have a little bit of flexibility there. And also, like, how it works is it syncs with your work calendar, but also, if you have a personal calendar that you want to, maybe you're just not going to be available for a certain period of time because of personal stuff, you can sync with any number of calendars, just as far as what your availability is. And it works with Google, Microsoft, and Apple. So that's cut out a lot of back and forth time in terms of scheduling things on the calendar. And then for managing my day-to-day task planning, and I totally agree with, for me, I set like my 3 things that I want to check off my list every day. And I use a tool called Todoist. And it's also free, and it's very nimble. I use it in the actual browser version, and it's a way for me to I can set one-off tasks if they're just like easy and I just want to check it off my list, or it has this ability to read your text of like, if it happens every week on a certain day, or every month, or every year. So it will then read that text and set a recurring to-do item for that.
Todoist, you said?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so you can kind of like, and you can drag and drop tasks around, and it's just very nimble and flexible. But yeah, I think overall, I just try to think about tweaking my system and using tools like these apps that will just help me get away from like deadline mentality, break off projects into more bite-sized pieces over a longer period of time, shift away from busy times. So this is a lot of what we talked about, is just like prepping for the week, because when you're in the moment, time is very valuable. And like sometimes you can't plan for everything that pops up. And so to the extent that you can plan to take time off of those busy times, it just helps you be able to deal with when things do eventually pop up that much better and that much easier.
Thank you, Victoria. You had mentioned Calendly, and that's obviously for your time management. There was a question from Cassie Shell, which was if there's a calendar and kind of scheduler that's like Doodle, where you can organize, availability for a lot of different people. Do any of you, either panelists or participants, have something similar to Doodle to plan for several different people's calendars to find ideal times? Lori or Jody or Victoria, if not, maybe members of the audience could chime in.
We've started to use Doodle a little bit more. We share all of our calendars, and you have the ability to mark some things as private, but my calendar is almost 100% open for anybody to grab time on our team. The challenge I have is that you have to really make sure that you block your own time sometime. And then the other thing is, people will schedule something right on top of a meeting I might be having with a client, and then my client meeting goes long. So you really need to make sure there's some buffers between meetings. And I can't say that I've fully figured that out, because it's getting a little bit better and people know not to do back to back. But we are, just from a Outlook does allow you to share calendars, and so we all use Outlook and share calendars and grab time, and people can put things on the calendar that way.
Lori?
Same. I would say we use Doodle if we are doing big meeting scheduling with internal, external, but we're on Google-based platforms, so we have access to everyone's calendar. And I would agree with you, Jody. We're still not quite back in remembering that we're going to meetings in person again. So I'll often have back to back with no travel time in between, and that can be a little challenging. So I need to find the link and I will circulate it. I know, Catherine, you're doing a great job of like kind of identifying, and we'll put a list together. But during COVID, I want to say it was Forbes maybe circulate. There was an article with like a very short quiz that helped you identify your own work style and how to become more efficient with your time. And it was super helpful. Through that, I identified two really key things about myself. One is I need to eat the frog, which sounds disgusting, but it's this concept that, yes, both Jody and Victoria talked about, which is do one thing, the one thing you've been procrastinating about or avoiding, just do it first. You know, take the time. It probably won't take you more than 30 minutes and you've just been putting it off, but just do it first, get it done with, and then the rest of your day is sort of downhill from there. The second is, and part of this is due to the nature of my work that I deal with, both, you know, managing a team and managing a good number of clients, sometimes in crisis, but multitasking can really, really be kind of the enemy of efficiency. And sometimes, though I'm a pretty good multitasker, I have so many, either it's tabs open on my browser or projects that need urgent attention. It's like when you walk into a room and you forgot why you walked in there. Like I have those moments sometimes, and that's when I know I'm trying to over multitask. So for me, time blocking has really been a bit of an antidote to that. And along with that, time blocking time specifically for things like email triage, rather than keep my email open all day and constantly be popping back and trying to get through 2 or 3 emails, which I found became really overwhelming during COVID, when rather than be down the hall from a teammate, we were constantly sending each other chats or emails. So I try to be good at triaging my email a couple times a day rather than leaving it open all day and just popping back in. Time blocking my own schedule. If there's a project that needs that, you know, I have a deadline coming up and I just haven't been able to focus, looking ahead on my schedule and either blocking off an hour of time to make sure I really have the ability to focus on that project, or for big projects, whether it be, you know, a major new program that we're implementing internally, even just blocking off an entire day. Sometimes it's a Friday or it's a day when it might be lighter from a client perspective, and maybe even going off site, going somewhere where you're less likely to face the interruptions of either the office or home, to really dig in, focus, and get that thing done. I also try to front load my schedule. I also am a very early morning person, so I try to front load my schedule with the focus time or the projects, even sometimes really early in the morning before the kids get up, tackle something from at home, and then have more flexibility later in the day, or schedule things like, you know, meetings or brainstorm sessions when my focus isn't quite there as it was earlier in the day. And then lastly, in terms of scheduling, and this kind of goes in between the personal hacks as well, but once a week, and again, I try to schedule these pretty far out in advance, but once a week, I schedule a late night for myself in the office. So that goes on the family calendar. My husband knows that he's in charge of the kids on that night. Some nights it's just a dig in, focus work session. Some nights it may be, you know, again, that's when I go and do a happy hour with friends or colleagues or a reporter or something like that. Or sometimes it's just, you know, it's just me time, and that's important too. But I try to schedule that out on the calendar in advance. And then lastly, another hack, and this seems sort of obvious, but I feel like it's important to have discipline around how you spend that time that then appears on your calendar, but it's going into those meetings or sessions with a bit of an agenda. So once we get in there, nobody's confused about why we're in the meeting. We're efficient with our time. It doesn't mean we can't take the time to also be personable and catch up and how was your weekend, but we know we've got 3 things that we need to get accomplished during that time, and everybody's clear about what that is. So also making sure that there's at least an informal agenda, if not an official agenda for those meetings, is really important to me.
Lori, I just want to add to that. The agendas are really critical, but I found increasingly it's important to not always be the person leading the agenda and making sure we know who's going to lead it. And it can be a really interesting opportunity for young people to have the experience of presenting in a safe environment to internal meetings. Like we will frequently ask our junior staff to lead and create agendas and run those meetings so they get the experience doing it before they have to do it in front of a client. But for me, I think not always having to be the person who manages the agenda in the call is good. You know what I mean? I need to be there. I need to hear. I need to participate, but I also don't need to manage every call. And it's
I,
a good experience for other people.
I fully agree. I feel like creating the expectation that there is an agenda to, to make sure I'm efficiently using my time is just as much an important part of the exercise. So then other people get into the habit and routine of doing it as well. They value their time as much as you value your time.
And are there any, maybe in the topic of work, but areas you guys talked about that you struggle with as far as efficiency, or, can't quite find that 15-minute buffer that you need, that you want to just talk about, or other life hacks that you're interested in just polling the audience on, or things that you haven't figured out yet that you really wish you did have an app for or a solution for? And if you've got it all figured out, then that's okay too. That's why we asked you to be our panelists.
There's those days where you feel like you're not productive. And I think it's important to take the time to realize that there's a lot of productivity in things that you've prioritized and that you've done. Like, I know Lori said this earlier, that she had a meeting with one of her staffers at Collectivo before everybody got on the phone, and blocking that time. And you may not feel like that's productive, but I've learned over time that taking that time and making sure you are present, and you may not feel productive in this time, in the long run, it's really very productive to be open and available and generous with your own time, with and not seeing that as unproductive time. So again, sort of rethinking about the calendar. If you don't feel like your day is productive, look again and say, well, those are things that I've prioritized. It's important to me. I showed up, and there's a benefit in that too. And realizing it's a long game, and every day isn't going to be super productive, but showing up, being there, listening, and being available is good, and don't beat yourself up about it.
Well, and to that point, Jody, I just wanted to add as well that I think it's so important. Like, we're having this conversation because we are all, relatively type A women that want, the reason why we want to be so organized is we want things to go off without a hitch, right? We want things to be flawless and well planned and no snafus. But at the end of the day, we need to give ourselves some grace when things aren't perfect. We need to, inevitably, things will pop up that are completely beyond our control, that will ruin even the best laid plans. And we need to recognize that there are learning opportunities for other people in every single one of those imperfect moments, right? So I had a moment at school last year, and I remember, I'll never forget it. It was like the school number calling my phone. I was like, oh no, who's sick? What's happening? And it was my older daughter calling because she realized that my younger daughter had a school concert that wasn't on the calendar, and my husband was he was out of town, and she had a gymnastics meet. And she was calling to remind me that my father-in-law was coming and she would be fine, and she wanted me to go to my younger daughter's concert. And I felt, first of all, horrible that my older daughter felt like this burden of reminding me. But then as I took a step back, I was so proud of how empowered she was. I appreciated that she stepped up to be like, wow, mom's managing a lot and I'm going to help her. And she felt like the hero because she was in that moment. And again, I think creating an expectation of perfection is, it's unattainable. And so that's unfair to ourselves and to other people. So that was one of those moments where I was like, it is okay. And in fact, everybody learns from those moments.
That's awesome, Lori. I'm glad you said that, and I'm sure everybody can echo that wholeheartedly. Any questions or any other topics we'd like to cover here? It looks like Carol Karen Long wrote a nice note similar to what you just said, Lori, about reflecting on days where you feel like you didn't get anything done at all, and just knowing that that's, okay. Anything else that the audience would like to ask questions about? Any other topics we didn't cover? Anything else from the panelists? Oh, sorry, one question in the chat. Any life hacks for days? Oh, I'm sorry. When you're home with school-aged children while also trying to work. Perhaps the kids are sick or got booted from school due to close contact with a student that has COVID. Victoria, you might have had some.
I want to just chime in here because COVID hit when our youngest was in 8th grade, and I did not, he was self-sufficient, and I worked from home while he worked, but I was in a separate room and it was fine. But I know, working through this, Victoria has been a huge help to our firm as our financial outsource CFO. I'll call her that because she's terrific. But I know during that time she was working from home with little kids, and it was a completely different equation, and I cannot speak to that, but I know that you all had heroic work that you had to get done, and you got it done. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. Yeah, we did get hit. All 5 of us got COVID in January. So I will say, okay, so to this spirit of giving yourself grace, I think you really, really need to, be on that train for, if that happens. So my kids, being, in 2nd grade, kindergarten, so my 2 older boys are into Pokemon. And so I just printed out these coloring pages for them, and it's just, you can just Google it for free. And I basically made a book of Pokemon coloring pages for them. And those old school pens where they're different colors all in one pen. So I got them each their own, and they sat there and it wasn't marker, so it took them a really long time to to color all of the spaces in, but they loved it. So I don't know if that works for everybody, but that took a lot of time and concentration, and it was a good thing. And part of the day, of course, maybe we had a movie in the afternoon or something, but I just try to find something that they're interested in, that maybe it's a hobby or all the kids at school are doing. And for them too, I got them these binders for their Pokemon, and then the card holders, and they can sit there and organize and reorganize and in different orders for hours. So we try to find stuff like that.
Well,
Victoria,
to
didn't
that
Matt
point,
also, didn't you trade off times too, where Matt, if you had an important call, Matt would cover, and vice versa? And so your husband was at home too, and he had a pretty, strenuous, he had a lot to do as well. And I think you also worked during off hours. I mean, you really had to do a lot to get things done and keep
Yep.
things moving,
Right.
and found some balance there. But your husband was also instrumental, I think, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it kind of kicked us back to when the world shut down in 2020. I mean, we were all tag teaming at that time. So, but the virtual option with schools was already up and running. So that was good.
well, and to your point, we know it's not done yet. We still, I've had a number of team members, myself included, that have all been on quarantine, even just these past few months. But the vast majority of our team are women, many of whom are working moms. So we have a couple of just little different Amazon basket items, honestly, that if somebody's at home with a kid from quarantine, it's almost like when you have a new baby and you have another kid at home, that special bin of toys that are all new and different and occupy their time. So I would say we try to send a care package if that is happening to someone on our team. But even if not, for yourself, order a few new things on Amazon that the kids are going to find new and fun and different. And I will say during quarantine, yeah, we went real old school with some of the ways to entertain ourselves. Victoria, to your point, whether it was like science experiments, one day it was like my kids, like we watched a video about Rube Goldberg machines, and then it was like, okay, here's the junk bin, like see what you can come up with. Or we live on a fairly, well, we overlook a fairly busy street, and I had my kids do like a science experiment about like what's the most popular color of car. So they did like track it for like 20 minutes and then make a graph out of it. And we were really struggling for things to do, but they found it fun and interesting and different. So it's just, it's super hard not to get frustrated, but you try to, yeah, go old school. Think about the games you would have played in the back of a car, in the back of the station wagon when you were a kid.
Yeah, the science experience. So if you're looking for something that's like a prepackaged, like, you know, science experiment sent to your house, there's something called Kiwi boxes or Kiwi Crates. And those are really great for just like, you know, there's instructions, it's all laid out, all the materials are in there. You can, you know, send the kid off for, you know, a couple hours and they're good.
Ask about that. Have you used Kiwi Crate or any other of the kind of kids activity subscription services, panelists or anyone that's attending that you recommend? It sounds like Kiwi Crate, Victoria's, as your stamp of approval.
We also did Kiwi Crate when the kids were younger. We're now doing America's Test Kitchen kids baking kits.
Oh,
so
cool.
They come with several different like little science experiment. One's about salt and one's about with yeast. And so it comes with 4 or 5 different recipes, but also the science behind baking. And that was a Tammy Garrison recommendation. So another Tempo shout out there, but my kids have loved those as well.
Oh, that's fun. Okay. It sounds like Passports is another one Sarah Holden recommended, Passports in addition to Kiwi. The America's Test Kitchen subscription sounds really fun. Is it intended just for kids, Lori?
Yes.
Neat. Radish kids. Okay.
I don't know if everybody else had the same experience with bigger kids, but you know, the work from home and the virtual thing, you know, some of those kids really they could sleep up until the moment school started, and they just start school in their boxers, and you know, they were, you know, attending classes and getting work done, but they had a lot more time on their hands to do video gaming. So I have to say I was thrilled when the schools reopened, because it was definitely not a healthy situation for a teenage boy who really enjoyed gaming.
Well, but we went old school on the games as well, but we would we all played Monopoly but you know, you've played enough times with your kids and somebody like kicks the board and then the houses go everywhere. So we would play on devices, like you download the electronic edition and all play electronically, which we've done. And we've also so we've gotten into Wordle as a family. And we'll do it everybody can take a turn guessing a different word, or we downloaded the app that lets you do more than one at a time. That's been fun as well.
Hikes were big for us too, you know, sort of getting outside and getting to do, you know, new areas. We do family hikes or family bike rides or family rollerblading too. That was a lot of fun and got the physical exercise done.
Very good. I'm glad we got to talk through some of these fun recommendations at the end here too, including Wordle. All right, well, Kelsey, I think that concludes our remarks. I'll turn it back over to you. And thanks to all of our participants today for adding a lot of great insights as well.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. And thank you again, Victoria and Jody and Lori. Just really great practical things that we can take back immediately and hopefully start using some of those. And hopefully this was helpful to attendees to learn of some new tips and tricks. And thank you to the attendees for also sharing yours. That was great to have you guys engaged as well, and just share with one another. I will say all of these women here are Tempo members, so you have access to their contact information should you have any questions or want to connect deeper. I certainly think that they would welcome that opportunity to connect with you guys. I know we are at time, so I just have a few quick upcoming events to plug. We hope that you can join us for some, if not all of these, but our May program meeting is next week, Thursday. We are having a conversation with the new Milwaukee Business Journal publisher, Heather Ladage. This is in person at the Italian Community Center included in Tempo dues, and then a guest fee for EWL and guests. We have a Women's Affinity Alliance event happening on May 25th, hosted by Godfrey Kahn, talking about successful surveys and how to survey your teams and clients and get good results. And then in June, we have our professional development series workshop, the Love Fear Paradigm. This is Friday, June 3rd in the morning from 7:30 to 9:30. This is a great session to bring your teams to and other guests as well. And last but not least, for all the EWLers on the call, as well as guests and also Tempo members, we invite you to join us as well. We have our 6th annual professional development workshop coming up on June 17th. We just announced this week our full event lineup, which, as you can see on the screen, is just a powerhouse of speakers and topics. So head to our website to learn more about that, but we'd love to see you guys in person for this day-long workshop. Thank you again to our panelists. Thank you to Catherine. Thank you to our programming committee for putting this session on. It was such a great way to start this head into the weekend and just to hear best practices from you all. So thank you guys for sharing, and everyone have a great weekend.